Let's go to start with that game because it is a huge game. I personally don't feel like Indiana needs to win the Rose Bowl where they're favored by 6.5 on FanDuel, over under at 48.5 over Alabama. I personally don't feel like they need this to validate them. As much as the SEC loves to talk about, point spreads and everything else, you would think a point spread would validate it, but no. No, I had had an Alabama fan respond to me on Twitter and said, well, Oregon was able to get 81 yards against Indiana on the ground. So just imagine how many yards Alabama's going to get. And I just responded and said, Oregon is the second highest yards per rush offense or like running game in college football. Alabama's 125th. And he said, well, easy schedule. Apparently that's where we're at right now. The Twitter's not real. The amount of people that have no idea what they're absolutely talking about, it's just not real. Zach, this is number 1 Indiana, 13-0 Big Ten champions, going against number 9 Alabama, who has 3 losses. Indiana is favored by 6.5. Clash of blue bloods in terms of 2 different sports, if you want to talk about it that way. Alabama, blue blood of college football. Indiana, blue blood of college basketball. So we could actually say clash of blue bloods, right?
Yes, with an asterisk. Yes.
True. Well, I want to bring this stat up first, Zach. Indiana is number 1 in the nation in more stats than Alabama is top 10 in the nation in stats.
So which stats are we talking about?
Like just common stats: point differential per game, turnover differential, penalty yards per game, passing touchdowns, and passing efficiency. Indiana is all number 1 in the nation. Alabama, with just like, and some of these are stretching it, so I'm doing my best here, but these are just like commonly found stats. This isn't like PFF or anything. Alabama is top 10 in touchdowns allowed, 23. I believe they're 10th, if I wrote that down correctly. Passing yards allowed per game, 168.4, and interceptions thrown percentage. That's it. That's all they're top 10 in.
Interesting.
Which actually, now that I think about it, I got that interception thrown percentage from teamrankings.com, and they threw 2 interceptions against Eastern Illinois, so maybe they're not. Because Team Rankings doesn't take out the FCS stuff. They just do the the FBS. So
it's interesting looking at it's the FRMO index, the FEI. Alabama fans coming at you for strength of schedule. Indiana's strength of schedule, according to FEI, is 13th. Like Alabama's 4. So yeah, like Indiana has they've had one of the toughest schedules in the country. Like nobody's debating that. But people who keep saying that Indiana hasn't played anybody, I'm like, what planet are you on? Because they have played some very good teams. They just haven't played the volume. But Indiana arguably has they have 2 of the 3 best wins this season. The only other win that compares is Georgia by Alabama, but that was early in the season. Indiana went on the road to Oregon. They beat Ohio State in a neutral site, which admittedly was way more Indiana fans than Ohio State. But still, all this junk about Indiana not playing anybody and having an easy schedule, it's garbage. It's not real analysis. And I think when you're talking about the statistics, I think the thing that's easy, I think in the past it'd be easy to say is like, well, but the Big Ten is not at the same caliber as the SEC. Their schedule's not at the same caliber. And 5-6 years ago, you could make that argument. Now, with who Indiana has played, you can't make that argument anymore. They still have done those things against top tier competition. So I think there is real validity to what you're saying with the statistics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Indiana has 2 top 10 wins. Alabama, they had their one over Georgia. I believe Georgia was a top 5 wins. I believe Georgia was a top 5 team when they beat them. But like this is what we're talking about here. They want to go by the rankings, and then they don't want to go by the rankings, and then they want to go by their made up statistics, which, I saw somebody put in on Twitter earlier today. This is a made up statistic, and they were like, "What? How dare you? These are legit statistics." It's like, no, actually, every single stat out there is just made up. One of the things that doesn't get pulled often for a Big Ten team is how many hitting yards a Big Ten team gets in a game. One of the reasons why teams like Minnesota and Iowa hardly ever receive as much, statistical, benefit as other teams do is because they don't run plays the same way that other teams in the SEC do. Obviously, they go after special teams yards and return yards, things like that. Field position is a huge thing for them. Anyway, this is an Indiana preview. I'm not trying to get after that stuff, but it's all garbage to try and do these strength of schedule things and everything else. People just don't know what they're talking about. And it's one of the reasons why I feel like Indiana's going to win this game. Alabama has many, many issues on this team that, for whatever reason, Alabama fans just do not want to acknowledge. One of the main ones being Alabama's run game. They stand no chance against Indiana's front seven. And I'm not just saying that as a Big Ten homer or anything like that. Literally, the stats, the statistics that all these SEC fans want to talk about, go look at them. Because when you have guys like Isaiah Jones, Aiden Fisher, and Elijah Hardy, I believe I'm saying that right. These guys are all fantastic linebackers. They are all able to stop. They've all been able to stop the run all season long. They've been great in coverage. At least Aiden Fisher has been the best of them all. But Indiana, their front seven has by far the best havoc rate in the country. Their team has the best havoc rate in the country on defense, but by far the front seven of Indiana has the best havoc rate in the country. A lot of people want to say, oh, Indiana's not seen an offensive line like Alabama because they're really big. But in all reality, the only good run blocker on that Alabama offensive line is Caden Proctor. Really, nobody else is all that outstanding as a run blocker. Really, nobody else is. I don't think really anybody else will be able to block the Indiana guys one-on-one, which I never thought I'd be saying this 3 years ago, but this is where we're at. Indiana's front seven is elite, and in all actuality, I don't think Alabama's seen a front seven like what Indiana has.
Yeah, and the thing that really concerns me for Alabama is the thing that you're talking, like one of the main things that Alabama has always been good at is a strong running game. People are talking on Twitter about Ohio State's run game being bad. Have you seen Alabama's run game?
125th in the nation in yards.
It is. Now, Jam Miller, if he gets loose, is a stud, right? Like really good running back. But he's got to get loose. And they can't. I mean, watching them against Georgia was laughable. It was laughable. And we're going to talk a little bit about Georgia Ole Miss at the end of this, but and I don't think it was as much good Georgia as it much was how ineffective Alabama was. And so if Bama has a chance in this game, they've got to essentially lean on their passing game. And I'm just not sure that Ty Simpson is going to be able to have enough time to be able to make enough plays. I think he will get his. I thought I was encouraged by how he rebounded in the second half against Oklahoma. And like Oklahoma defensively is good. But again, they have not been Brent Venables, when he was defensive coordinator at Clemson, he was so good at disguising. But I think as the head coach, he has not been able to do as much. And I just don't, I think teams have kind of figured him out defensively. And so he's got elite talent, but I think Brian Haynes, and I forget who mentioned it on the chat. Man, Brian Haynes is a mad scientist. That dude, there it is. If you know anything about this staff, you'll know Brian Haynes is having fun on Twitter before the game, and the staff is very confident. And he has been talking smack on Twitter. It's not just the personnel, but it's the disguising and the play calling. And that's where I'm like, this is not Bama of old I don't know how Bama is going to consistently sustain drives. Like, that's the thing. I think they might get a couple of big plays, but consistently driving the field without a run game, that feels near impossible to be successful against this Hoosier defense.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama can get some like 20 plus 30 plus yard plays, and honestly that's been one of Indiana's biggest weaknesses on defense is how many big plays they can give up. But like, Alabama sucks at big plays. Alabama is outside the top 120. I just said they're 125th in yards per carry. They're outside the top 120 in 40 plus yard plays. It's for people to be coming after this game saying, "Oh, this is a terrible matchup for Indiana and everything else." Like, this is another big thing in the game that people are not talking about enough, is how, yes, Indiana can be susceptible to big plays. Doesn't mean they always are, but this is what you have to do when a defense when a defense is really, really good. You have to try and find minute little things in their defense that they're not very good at, or that it could be a possible weakness for them. And this possible weakness that Indiana has of the big plays just so happens to be something that Alabama is not able to do all that super well. And then on the flip side of it, you look at it, Alabama, their clear weakness, one of their clear weaknesses on defense, because they have multiple weaknesses on defense. Merry Christmas, Kirk Cinetti. You can go out here and attack that defense in 5 different ways, because John Mateer was finding guys wide open downfield. I'm pretty sure Fernando Mendoza's going to be able to find him wide open downfield. But Alabama is 50th in allowing 10 plus yard plays. I'm not talking 40 plus yard plays, 10 plus yard plays. Alabama is 50th in allowing those. They are 85th in allowing 20 plus yard plays. It just keeps getting worse and worse the way it goes. In Indiana, they are really, really good at executing, not plays, run plays. 50th in 10 plus yard runs, 85th in 20 plus yard runs. Indiana is 15th in 10 plus yard runs this season. Indiana is 12th, tied for 12th in 20 plus yard runs. So if any team's going to come out here getting the big plays, like, don't get me wrong, I think Fernando Mendoza is going to have a good day. I would not be surprised if this running back room of Roman Hemby and those guys back there, if they just keep breaking off 10, 20 plus yard runs in this game, and you see 5 or 6 big explosive run plays in this one, because Alabama has shown this entire season that they can't stop it.
That's where I might push back a little bit, because I think statistically you're right. But what have we seen when Indiana has had to play any team in the top 30 of Sagarin? They've struggled a bit to run the ball, right? They've looked very good to run the ball against anybody not named Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Iowa. But as soon as they play a team with at least somewhat great to elite talent, I'm not saying they have an elite defense, but there is really good talent on that defense. There has been a bit of I don't want to say a breaking point, but there has been a little bit of a freeze point, which I'll borrow from CFB Nerds and Josh Pate. And that's maybe where I'm a little concerned for Indiana is, now, let me caveat this. If they're doing what you're saying, I mean, it's over. Like, forget it. Like, Indiana wins by 17 plus if they can't stop the run game. I am not sure that Indiana will be able to run as effectively despite what the statistics say, because I do think the talent level on Alabama's defense is better. It is more in that Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon tier than it is anyone else they've played.
I mean, sure, the talent level it is, but what do we get screamed at by SEC fans all the time? Oh, the talent in the SEC is just so much greater. But what do we see year after year? Them underachieving with that talent, right? I mean, at a certain point, yes, I agree with you. The talent, Alabama has elite talent on their team. They have 9 5-stars, I think somebody said, on this team. You have all the 5-stars in the world you want. Indiana doesn't have any 5-stars, but they're still out here. Their players are playing like 5-stars because they're better coached, because they have better production, and they're better at executing, being able to play against these guys. So yes, like 5-stars, I agree with you. 5 stars, talent wise, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that Indiana's going to go out there and score 45 on them or anything like that, but I can totally see Indiana breaking off 5, 6, 10, 20 plus yard runs in this game and getting 150 yards on the ground. And if you look back at those games against Iowa, Ohio State, Penn State, you look at sack adjusted yards, they've been right there in between like 110 and 140 for most of those games. So it's not out of the question to think that Indiana could come out and run really, really well against this Alabama team as well, who is 34th in the nation in yards per carry, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that really fast. I believe, 34th in the nation in yards per carry allowed.
Okay. How many points do you think Indiana has to score to win, like to guarantee victory in this game?
I mean, 24.
Okay.
Because I don't think Alabama's going to run the ball well enough.
Yeah.
And also, you have to take into account. Sorry, were you going to say something? I was going to switch gears to something else.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you have to take into account that Ty Simpson is almost guaranteed an interception or two in this game. Indiana, they have the best turnover differential in the country, and Ty Simpson has only thrown 5 interceptions on the year. That looks really good, right? That looks really good. But when I tell you how many turnover-worthy plays he has 15. That is worse than. Hold on, I had it here. Where did I have it at? That is worse than. Oh, I didn't write it down. Unfortunate. If I remember off the top of my head, that's worse than guys like Aiden Childs, Dylan Raiola. I'll just have to pull it up here in a second and read off the list for you. But that would be 4th in the Big Ten. That would be 4th most turnover-worthy plays by a quarterback in the Big Ten. In the SEC, it's the 7th most because the SEC just doesn't have as good of quarterback play as the Big Ten. I know that's crazy for some people to hear and say, but it's true.
And this is again, I'm playing, I don't want to say devil's advocate, but I am playing but what if Alabama plays at their potential? Because I agree with you. Ty Simpson he's been very inconsistent, right? And I think that is the story of SEC quarterback play all year, not just Alabama. Like Gunnar Stockton has been good, but I mean, you go back to the Georgia Tech game, he was awful, right? So I am with you that I think if the averages play out, then I think you're going to see a couple turnovers. Ty Simpson, though, there's a reason why scouts are saying he's a first round level quarterback. And that's where I think my concern comes in if I'm a Hoosiers fan, which, believe it or not, I am rooting for the Hoosiers in this game. I know Indiana fans are saying Zack doesn't like us. I actually really like you. I think this is the best story in college football. But this is why the talent level does concern me, both defense and offense. If law of averages plays out, then yes, Indiana should win. They're the better coach team. Fernando Mendoza is going to be the best player on the field. But this is not a game where Alabama is so much, and this isn't what you're saying, but is so much worse that they can't punch up. Like they have the talent level to turn it on for a game and blitz you. They have it. They have wide receivers that can play. Again, Jam Miller has not gotten loose a lot because that offensive line's bad. But if Miller gets loose, Ty Simpson can play really good football. And so I think that's the danger is, can Alabama put together a complete game for 4 quarters? Because if they do, that's when Indiana could really get into trouble.
But even if you look at the best Alabama's been, it's still not been as good as Indiana.
Yes, but I think, again, I don't know if I would agree we've seen the best of Alabama. I think we've seen moments, we've seen stretches, but I don't think we have seen, like, and to your point, we have not seen them capitalize on their talent level.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to base my pick based on what I've seen this season. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I hear you, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to base my pick on a what if. You know, I'm not going to base my pick, and I know you're not either. I'm just saying, like, to me, the whole like, what if that happens? Like, nobody was picking Ohio State last year. What if Ohio State forgets how to play offense against Michigan, and doesn't make a single field goal, not a single field goal. They made one, but doesn't make multiple field goals. Like, that's just such a what if that it's like, I think if Indiana loses this game, it would not be Alabama winning. I think it would be Indiana losing because they don't play up to themselves. I think that's honestly probably the bigger what if. But I'm not going to go with it. I'm going to predict Indiana wins this game 27-13. I have them covering. I have them scoring less than I thought I would, but I also feel like Kirk Cinetti, first game of the playoffs, I think he knows he has tougher competition coming than Alabama. And I don't think Alabama is going to be like Illinois to where they can run the ball like 19, 20 times straight at the end of the game and just put up, what did they put up? 60 on them or something like that, 50, 60, however much it was. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Alabama would at least be able to hold them to that much. So 27-13, that's my prediction. What's your prediction, Zach?
So how many points did you say that Indiana needs to score to win?
I mean, if I'm being generous, like 24.
I've got Indiana 24-20.
Okay.
That's,
you got a little bit closer than I do.
Yeah. I do think people, and I think we've done this too. I think we've undersold Kalen DeBoer a little bit. And I think he's going to have his guys ready to go. I think they can play a card that Bama rarely can play, which is the disrespect card. And motivation, once the ball is kicked off, who cares? But I do think you're going to see a juiced up version of Bama. And I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think Mendoza is going to continue to show us why he is arguably going to be the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah, I think he is. Traits, everything else, it all works for him.